I blame kindergarten limericks for April showers bring May flowers.
Oh, hey. Hey, welcome back. Welcome back to the Wild Business Growth Podcast. This is your place to hear from a new entrepreneur every single Wednesday morning who's turning wild ideas into wild growth. I'm your host, Max Brandstetter, founder and podcast producer at Max Podcasting. And you can email me at max@maxpodcasting.com to save time with your high-quality podcast. This is episode 111222. Shout out hashtag Dana got Max. And today's guest is Cam MacKugler. He is the founder of Seedsheet, which, in addition to having some spectacular alliteration, is a thrilling company which helps make gardening easier. You might have seen him on the tank of the shark variety. And in this episode, we talk everything from where the Seedsheet story came about. It does involve maybe some crayons, maybe some cocktail napkins, how to get a big first customer, and figure out the back end side of things that you can actually meet demand for that big customer, and loads of nostalgia from growing up skiing on Stratton Mountain and beyond. It is Cam the Man. Cam, enjoy the show. Alrighty, we are here with Cam MacKugler, who I have a mental block with that name. Cam, my buddy Cam, founder of Seedsheet. A really cool story and background and everything in the entrepreneurial space and beyond. So excited to speak to you today. Thanks so much for coming on. How you doing today, Cam?
Doing awesome, Max. Thanks so much for having me on. I've been a listener for a while and stoked to help out some folks that are listening potentially.
Awesome. I think definitely, not potentially, but thank you. No, thank you for tuning in and being here. It means a lot. And first question is more of just a statement. MacKugler. MacKugler. But second question. No, so in looking up your background, I saw that you have a big background, obviously, like born and raised, live in Vermont, and that you used to be a professional ski racer at Stratton Mountain. And at the time of this recording, my wife Dana and I literally just got back from skiing Stratton last weekend, and her grandma Phyllis, shout out Phyllis, lives up in Manchester, Vermont. So super small world. Dana and her family literally grew up skiing Stratton, as a tongue twister, every single winter, and so tons of nostalgia there. But special place in her heart, and now my heart as well. How in the world did you what's the background of you getting interested in skiing and finding a home in Stratton and kind of all that spot?
There's not a lot that happens in Vermont. It's a state of 650,000 people, second least populated behind Wyoming, and you can really ski, or that's about it. Or raise dairy cows. That's kind of what the state's known for. We have Ben and Jerry's and Burton snowboards. So if it's winter sports related or milk and cheese, that's kind of what you can do. And so actually my background in ski racing was more so the fact that our town was so small, we didn't have a local high school. And the town actually paid a portion of your tuition to either go to the local school in Manchester, Burton Academy, or you could go to this ski academy up at Stratton that didn't start school until 1 p.m. and you skied every morning. So it was not a really difficult decision to make. And I found myself going down the athletic career to become a Nordic skier. Eventually made it onto the U.S. ski team, traveled all over Europe and skied, and eventually got recruited to go to Middlebury College in Middlebury, Vermont. So I'm a born and raised Vermonter that took me a while to get out of the state.
Well, the state is a ton of fun, and I think there's something special about it. I mean, I was thinking recently that, I've the past several years have lived New York City area and love it, but every now and then you just need that escape to like a totally different place. And I think one of my favorite parts of going to Vermont is it really does feel like a totally different place. I mean, it's beautiful. As you mentioned, there's way less people there. Although on big holiday skiing weekends, it's pretty busy at Stratton. But
Mm.
like, it's, I think it's just like good for the soul to be up there. And Dana's grandparents, Phyllis and Steve, for the longest time, like just absolutely loved up there. How you mentioned Nordic skiing? Is that the same? Is that cross country skiing?
Yeah, it's cross country skiing. So we are the guys that didn't get the memo that chairlifts take you to the top. So we are the ones that actually skied uphill as well too. It's the most physically demanding sport out there. So kind of historically, they measure athletic kind of prowess by VO2 max testing, the volume of oxygen that you can breathe and work through your system at effort. And I think Lance Armstrong had like a 96 and it's out of 100. And Bjorn Dali, who is this world famous cross country skier, is like 98. So the most fit people of all time have been cross country skiers. So shout out to that sport.
Yeah, I'm exhausted thinking about it. I was thinking this pastime skiing, we hadn't skied in a few years, and like I've been skiing like 5 times in my life now. So like I know how to like go down the mountain, but like I'm not by any means like I'm not doing like the double blacks, and like I still have a long way to go. But like I'm fine. Like I don't fall off it anymore. But like just getting back on skis for the first time after not doing it in a few years, like just moving on like horizontal ground or uphill a little bit to actually get to like the chairlift was by far the hardest part. So I have massive respect for you and everybody that does cross country skiing because that it does like it's exhausting just hearing about it. What possessed you to go that route as opposed to the route that's like friendlier because gravity's pulling you down?
Well, and the other ironic part too is that I'm 6'5", 250 now, and back in the ski racing days, I was 230, and I was the largest cross country skier on the U.S. circuit at the time. Like,
I'm getting some Buddy the Elf vibes.
yeah, you're not wrong. Mostly the fact that I was kind of rebelling against my parents. My parents both worked at Bromley ski area as ski instructors, and I was on the mountain every day with my alpine gear going downhill and just wanted something new and different. And Nordic skiing was super appealing. There was a really large community of cross-country skiers in the small town of Londonderry, Vermont. And actually, if you look at like the past 4 or 5 Olympics, there are more Vermonters than any other state represented on the U.S. ski team for cross country. And of that, about half of them are from the Londonderry, Stratton, Vermont area.
Oh my god, this is like extra small world. So my wife Dana and her cousins and parents and aunt and uncle they would. So Bromley is where they would go like in the summer to do like the alpine slide and like almost like carnival ride things like that activities. And then do you happen to know the name Gottdiener? Either Steve Gottdiener or Dana Gottdiener, Phyllis Gottdiener. It's okay if you don't.
It sounds familiar.
Her grandpa Steve has passed away now. Like he volunteered on Stratton for a while, like when he was retired, and he was the guy that gave out marshmallows for the kids that were making s'mores at the fire. So they called him Mr. Marshmallow. But anyway, he like literally like his retirement job was like working on Stratton Mountain. So
That's amazing. That's literally my grandfather was the same way at Bromley.
oh, that's awesome. And Dana and her brother Adam, they were when they were kids, they were like ski slalom racers, and they were like top ranked, like really, really good with that. So like, I feel like I'm interviewing my wife. I bet you've never heard that one before.
No, I've only ever been interviewed by my wife. It's never the other way around.
Well, we could talk skiing in Vermont and Vermont craft beer as well all day, but would love to talk the Seedsheet story. So you have an amazing entrepreneurial story here. How did you get this idea for Seedsheet in the first place?
Yeah, so the story and the origin of Seedsheet came about as honestly as, startup aha moments come. So in college, I was ski racing, and in the summers, I would work for my grandfather in southern Vermont building houses. He had a little building development company, and I kind of fell in love with construction. And part of it was I really enjoyed building houses, working with my hands. The other half was my grandfather tried to give me the most physically taxing jobs possible so that I would get strong and tough so I could be a better ski racer. And I graduated Middlebury College in 2009, which was obviously not a very great economic market, especially in new home construction. So my background in architecture kind of, and that's what I majored in college, it kind of took a backseat. It was also a work up to an Olympic year in 2010, which was the Vancouver Olympics. So I graduated college, actually went back down to Stratton to ski on their kind of pro team that they had then and try to make the 2010 Olympics. And in December leading up to it, where Olympic trials took place, I blew out my knee a week before Olympic trials. And that was just the end of that road, which ultimately was very good because it pushed me back into architecture. And so I found a job in Middlebury working at Breadloaf Architecture, and it was a design build firm. We did a lot of sustainable designs, and it was kind of like merging of art and environmental, which were my other two minors at Middlebury. And so I got my leadership and energy and environmental design accreditations, LEED, and that kind of pushed me down this path of really looking at ways to incorporate nature into buildings. So we did a lot of designs with vegetated growing walls and living roofs, and that kind of became the niche that I got really passionate about. And one summer I was house sitting for a coworker, and because it was Vermont, his house was a fully functioning 80-acre dairy farm with this just gigantic backyard garden, and I'd spend my evenings after work. I'd be at work all day drafting blueprints in AutoCAD and then would come home and harvest kale out of the garden for dinner. And one evening when I was picking kale, I just saw like the garden had all these just like very meticulously organized rows. And in my mind, I saw a blueprint and wondered like, why isn't there a blueprint for plants? And it was just like that innocent. It wasn't like I want to have an idea to change the gardening industry. It was just like, I think this would be cool. It was this, amalgamation of my backgrounds that made a lot of sense and got me really interested. So I honestly grabbed my coworker's kids' crayons, sketched out the first iteration of Seedsheet, and that became the impetus to develop a product and eventually start a company.
Oh my god! Well, first of all, when I interviewed my dad back in 2018, our first ever like Thanksgiving family special interview, and he said then that like you feel really creative when you're drawing with crayons. Like more people should draw with crayons. So that's so cool that your first business sketch came out of that. On the knee injury, what knee injury was it?
It was ACL.
Oh man, yeah, common one, unfortunately. Yeah, that's a huge bummer. But obviously, from the business standpoint, it really helped you out. But when you did go through that knee injury, what advice do you have for anybody that has like a devastating injury blow like that? Especially, I mean, you had even extreme circumstances with like trying to make the Olympics. That's a huge hit.
Yeah, it was. I think that the hardest part for me, and it's a good reminder for me even right now, is that the majority of my personality was wrapped up around skiing. Like that was my background, that was my passions, that was kind of a singular track focus. And it's kind of the same thing right now with Seedsheet, honestly. Is it's like I am Mr. Seedsheet. It's really important to remember you want to be diversified. You don't want to have all your eggs in one basket, which is, honestly one of the reasons that I went to a really good college like Middlebury. I had, offers to go ski at any college in the country because I was on the U.S. ski team my senior year in high school. And I was between Dartmouth and Middlebury, and mostly just because of the Vermont roots, I wanted to stay home and stay close to home, and go to a school where I was able to not only ski race at a super high level, but build up passion, get some degrees that would ultimately theoretically help me off later in life. And instead, I'm doing entrepreneurship, which is devoid of any sort of accreditation.
Hey, you're doing some good things. We'll give it to you. But
Yeah.
Seedsheet, so it's super cool and unique idea. For anybody who's not familiar, what's the biggest difference between Seedsheets and traditional like gardening, if you think about it that way, if you could pronounce it, if I could pronounce it?
Yeah, so what the Seedsheet is, to kind of provide a little bit more context there, it's a garden and a sheet. It's essentially a rollout garden. If you have planted historically, conventionally in the past, the process is usually you get your packet of seeds, you go to your garden, you poke the holes in the soil with your finger, you place your seeds into that hole, you cover it up with soil, and then you do that on repeat for all the plants that you want in your garden. Not only is that a time and labor intensive process, but there's a lot of education that goes with it too. What plants to put next to each other, how far apart do you plant them, what plants are going to be ready for harvest at different times so that you can have succession planting and always keep your garden growing. And for the bulk of first timers, that's too much of a barrier. And so with Seedsheet, starts off with a weed blocking fabric that's roughly 4 foot by 8 feet, the size of most raised bed container gardens. And then within that weed blocking fabric, we take dissolvable pods that are very similar to a laundry pod, but instead of soap, obviously, ours have organic seeds and a little buffer of soil. So we've basically replicated that process of poking the hole in the soil with your finger, putting in the seed, with a sheet that can be laid out just like you're making your bed in the morning. So all of our seed sheets come with different varieties of seeds, so you can either customize them on our website, pick and choose your favorite plants. Our software helps our customers choose varieties that will work well together, or you can choose pre-designed gardens, ones that have different recipe themes, like a salad garden or salsa garden or different mixed herb gardens. And we basically ship a farm to your door. You roll it over your garden, add water, the pods dissolve, your plants come up through the aligned openings in the weed blocking fabric, and you get this perfectly designed and spaced organic weedless garden that it's not set it, forget it, because we want our customers to learn as well. So it's a huge departure from traditional gardening in the sense that we make it really, really easy. And then we also guide our customers through the whole journey. All of our products have QR codes on each row of plants. So at any point in time, you can scan your garden and learn what you need to do next to maximize your success. So, we like to say we're not just growing gardens, we're growing gardeners, and we're on our way to growing millions of them.
When you started listing off the pre-designed gardens you have, I thought you were going to say you offer Olive Gardens as well. I think there's a brand partnership there. Maybe Red Lobster Gardens.
There's a lawsuit there.
Yeah, yeah. There you go. You got your legal hat on. And this has been a good interview, but now it's canceled. No, but I love how there's options there if you're a customer, because I imagine there's a subset of customers that just want kind of the seeds and roots and all these different things picked out. And then there's also people that are really, really interested in just choosing their own. And over the past several years, like, so many businesses are meeting those customer needs of personalization, which is almost as tough to say as your last name, and customization. And so it's like you can choose your own, which is really cool, or you can pick pre-designed ones. Of the pre-designed garden bed sets, or I'll just call them seed sheets, what are some of the best sellers so far?
For the most part, people associate gardening with tomatoes, right? So for whatever reason, like you go to a farmer's market, the first thing that you want to get there is a ripe tomato. So we sell a ton of tomatoes, and our different tomato-focused pre-designed kits. That we have an easy breezy caprese, which I'm sure the Italians are shaking in their boots at my pronunciation of that. But
but those who love rhymes and corniness are applauding you for that. So nicely done.
oh, absolutely. We pride ourselves on our gardening puns at Seedsheet, to say the least.
Perfect. Yeah, but the tomatoes. Yeah, I could see that. Tomato is definitely one of the first things that come to mind from a gardening standpoint. How do you and team go about deciding what these pre-designed models look like?
A lot of it's based off of consumer feedback. Because we offer customizable products at the same time, we have really good insight as to what people are interested in, and beyond that, beyond a national level, geographically speaking. So we can do, there's 13 different climate zones in the country that the USDA puts out. So, Vermont has a different growing season than Florida. And so there's a ton of specificity that we can offer on our site to make sure that customers in South Florida are going to be growing crops that are compatible with their environment versus Fairbanks, Alaska, say. We definitely listen to what our customers are buying, ask them to generate different recipe ideas too. There's a lot of user feedback that goes into our product development. That's something that we're really, really proud of because not only we have an interesting consumer mix. 50% of our customers are, or 49, 51, 49% are millennials that have never gardened before. And the other 50% are veteran gardeners that have grown a ton of gardens and really are familiar with the amount of work and effort that goes into it and are looking for a way that they can, maybe even grow more, plant more gardens because we reduce a lot of those pain points. It's really intriguing that we get a nice mix of customers entering the top of the gardening funnel that we can nurture for life and become customers for life, as well as people that really have familiarity around a lot of the varieties that we offer and can provide pretty unique insights of what works well for their area that they've been growing for 30 years.
How do you navigate that seasonality, which is pretty unique to the gardening and spring/summertime activities?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I blame kindergarten limericks for April showers bring May flowers. Uh, it's like 70% of our business comes between April and July. So it definitely has complications there, not only from, just cash flow perspective, but also operations, manufacturing. We build all of these in our factory in Middlebury, Vermont. Inventing the product was a fun challenge, but inventing the machines to build it at scale was the really unique challenge for us. So the more we can do to flatten seasonality is huge. So in the short term, we're just really focused on geo-targeted ads, making sure that we are reaching out to people in Florida that have a September gardening season versus people in New York that have a May gardening season. And so there's a big education component that comes from it, but there's definitely a part of the country that can grow any time of the year. And in the long term, we're going to go international, go south of the equator where the seasons are opposite of ours. And that allows you to really kill any seasonality.
Yeah, that expands your. When you think of that other half of the world, it's like, well, I don't know if this is actually true, but they say that like Australia, South America, the toilet winds different way, the toilet water goes different ways, but yeah, the seasons can be opposite too, so that makes sense. That kind of does solve the seasonality aspect to it. You mentioned that you're not just inventing these products, you are inventing the machines that are tied to it, which is like, my mind just exploded because that's a whole other level of ingenuity there. What did that process look like to figure out to either make or find machines that would do what they do for you?
Yeah, it was definitely a little redneck engineering.
The best kind of engineering.
Absolutely, absolutely. We definitely applauded our initial team's capabilities and flexibility in thinking outside the box. And honestly, like a big part of it came from my ski racing background, where you put wax on your skis, right? So every ski racer, every skier for the most part, has a waxing iron, and it's a variable temperature iron that you can adjust very precisely because different waxes need to be applied heat at different levels. And I was just messing around with different films, different dissolvable films, and found out that I could heat seal them together using my waxing iron. And I could build the pods, and then we started to extrapolate that and find machines at scale that would be able to do not one pod at a time, but several hundred at a time.
Oh my god, yeah, that's so cool. It all goes back to skiing. You're trying to get
It
away from it,
does.
but the wax comes in handy. When you think about getting the word out about the product, what have been some of the biggest challenges or obstacles in terms of finding that momentum somewhere with your brand?
Yeah, it's definitely a unique challenge for us being in Vermont with such a small state where, word of mouth can only get you so far when there's only 600,000 people in the whole state. So from the get-go, one of my goals was to widen that network, broaden the audience as much as possible. I grew up with a very low to middle income family, and so I didn't have cash reserves to start a company and self-fund it. So we've been basically cash flow funded from the get-go. Launched initially on Kickstarter, and that was really really rough draft early iteration of the product, but it succeeded in the $30,000 goal, which was enough to get us a couple months of rent, move into a factory, and start figuring out how we were going to build it at scale. And then on the heels of that, We got really great press because of the Kickstarter, which did lead some kind of local angel investors to have interest in us. And that provided the capital for our first year to get up and running. And based off of the traction that we got from Kickstarter, we were able to go from a Kickstarter success into a small number, but into Home Depot stores within 6 months. And by virtue of that quick trajectory from napkin sketch to Kickstarter to Home Depot stores, we were able to get the attention from Shark Tank producers. And that was really when we kicked things into overdrive, was when we got onto Shark Tank.
That's when you gardened your way to the top. So
Exactly.
let's talk Home Depot first. What was your instant reaction when you heard that Home Depot would be trying you guys out?
Exhilaration and panic at the same time. At the point where we were talking with Home Depot buyers and they're expressing interest, we didn't even have packaging. We had we had some products that we were building. We could do, it took us 4 months to build the 350 something Kickstarter orders, and we were about to get a purchase order on the magnitude of thousands. And we knew that we had a product that we could build, but we didn't know how the heck we were going to be able to scale to be able to meet that initial surge of demand. And we were packaging them essentially in trash bags. It was black poly mailers that looked like a hefty bag. It was not ready for prime time. It was helpful because, again, momentum begets momentum. So the fact that we went from a Kickstarter success into Home Depot definitely helped open some doors for us, get to work at pretty compelling rates with different packaging companies. And we were able to assemble a pretty quick team to get us to be retail ready. So it was really exciting, but at the same time, if it goes poorly, that's a big hit on your capital stack to go big with a big box store. Literally, our first client was Home Depot, so that was shooting for the moon.
Yeah, not stressful whatsoever. But that's a pretty well known first client, so that's a pretty good place to start. How about Shark Tank? You mentioned that it really kicked things to another gear. Can you put in perspective, like what was the actual impact you saw to your business from that?
Yeah, I mean, financially, it was huge. The year that I'm trying to remember back to the pitch because we pitched it in 2016 and it aired in 2017.
I want like a word for word recital, like in Spanish. No.
I can basically do it though. It's embedded in the brain for sure. But in the year that we pitched it on Shark Tank, I think I had $160,000 worth of sales, and that was the Home Depot launch. The day that we aired on Shark Tank, we did $250,000 of sales, like the night that we aired. And then it, kept on going after that because people record it and then it becomes available on Hulu. And even now, several years later, it re-airs about twice a quarter. And, you don't know when it's going to air. CNBC might air it at 3 in the morning on a Thursday night, but we'll continue to see these just giant spikes in traffic go to the site. And, oh, we must have re-aired again. So it's great from that perspective where it's like an infomercial that lives on, even though I was probably 5 years younger and 20 pounds lighter back then.
Well, I'll let you know when it re-airs because we'll see this spike for this episode and downloads as well. I'm
Absolutely.
sure. So so we'll keep an eye out for you, keep an ear out for you as well. One way to keep an ear out for when the latest Wild Business Growth Podcast episode has dropped is, of course, to subscribe on all your favorite platforms or follow, as the kids say, on your favorite platforms. But you can also get the latest and greatest and also some behind-the-scenes details by signing up for the Podcasting to the Max newsletter. That is at maxpodcasting.com/newsletter. I got incredibly creative with the landing page there. But it is a clever name for a newsletter, if I may say so myself. Thank you, Dana. In addition to learning about the latest Wild Business Growth Podcast guest and insights from the episode and beyond, you will see hot off the press podcasting tips ranging from podcast hosting to podcast production to podcast editing, interviewing tips as well. And if there's any specific topics you want, let me know. But the key bottom line is Podcasting to the Max newsletter. You can sign up at maxpodcasting.com/newsletter. newsletter. Now let's get from ski gear to switching gears over the course of the interview. See what I did there? So let's switch gears a little bit. Let's get to inspiration and creativity. So kind of you on the personal side, what you do to outside of work to stay creative. And I know you're busy with the family and the business and everything there. But do you still ski?
Yeah, absolutely. I actually ended up marrying a Alpine racer who went to Dartmouth. So
Oh my god!
yeah,
you have the fastest skiing family I've ever heard.
we joke that our kids are going to be in like the 2050 Olympics, but
Hey, it might happen. Yeah.
at the same time, we're both of the mindset that we've done enough ski races, so we're trying to push our kids to like beach volleyball or surfing, some place that we can spectate in a warmer climate.
Right. Oh, besides skiing, what do you do in your free time that just helps you kind of unwind a bit or unplant, I'm trying to think of a good gardening pun, but I'm out of it. Need some tools here.
I've always had, big passions in the outdoor space, and that's kind of what made a lot of sense for me to go into gardening as a whole. Is just like I'm always been an outdoors guy. Grew up in a small town next to a dairy farm. I took the tractor to school. I grew up hunting and fishing. Fishing is kind of my sweet spot now, where backcountry skiing is great in the winter, but tying some flies, going fly fishing is kind of my relaxing, get a mental clarity. It's my mental health day is when I get to go out to the river and throw some flies around.
Are there any activities or times of the day in particular where you tend to get some ideas pop into your head that you can apply back to the business?
Absolutely. I've definitely found that, my hack, and I wish I had found this when I was actually still an athlete, but books on tape and podcasts while going for runs has been just like gold for me. Where, I mean, I never even had headphones when I was training back in the day. We would just like go on long workouts together and just talk as a team. And starting with headphones, and I lived in New York for a while, so I would go for runs around Central Park, listen to books and podcasts on tape, and then now I'm living out in the Bay Area, and there's literally a ridge line 2 minutes from my house that I can go for a 10-mile run. And it's the ultimate hack because you put it on an intriguing book or podcast and like you don't want to stop. You get to that junction in the trail. It's like I can go left to go home, or I can listen to the next Dan Brown chapter. And it's like I'm taking the long way home. And so I've definitely listened to a ton of great books, a ton of, super inspirational founder stories. And I think, Shoe Dog has to be my favorite, the Phil Knight Nike story. And that one has just provided so much inspiration and just relevance. It's like companies like Nike have gone through the grinder just like the rest of us. And just having that tenacity and just knowing that, hey, they went through it too. Everyone goes through the dishes to get up to the mountaintop. So running and podcasts and books on tape have been definitely my source of inspiration and creativity.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Those are good spaces to be. And I was dying to ask you your favorite book to listen to on tape, and you answered it for me. So you're hosting the interview as well. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I probably read that one now or listened to it probably close to 10 or 15 times. That one and Boys in the Boat are my two favorites.
All right, let's wrap up with some rapid fire Q&A. You ready for it?
Fire away.
All right, firing away. What is the longest distance that you have ever traversed on skis?
Ooh, skis. We've done some, we always went by mileage or by hours instead of mileage. Because like with training, you have to increase your hours year over year. So the longest one we did was like an 8-hour skate ski into West Yellowstone. We were in West Yellowstone for fall training camp, and we actually skied into Yellowstone itself. And it's awesome time of the year. Super snowy, snowmobile trails everywhere, no traffic anywhere. You can really only ski there. And on the way back, a buffalo came into the trail in front of us, and we literally skied behind a buffalo and kind of chased it, which is probably not super kosher, but we skied with a buffalo for about 2 miles.
Oh my God, that is so cool. Did the buffalo ever notice you?
Yeah, I mean, after a while, it's not like we can say it got boring, but like after a while, it lost its kind of initial like, oh my gosh, we're skiing with a buffalo. And so a kid on my team went like "Mrrr," and made like a cow noise because we're Vermonters, we don't know what buffaloes sound like, but apparently it was similar enough that the thing stopped on its tracks and like turned at us, and we all threw on the brakes and were like, oh gosh, we're gonna get charged. But then it shuffled off into the snow on the side, and we had a nice, calm, relaxing ski back.
Oh my god, I'm pretty sure buffaloes sound exactly like Josh Allen. I think that's how it works.
Yeah, exactly.
I heard that you once did a investor pitch on a chairlift. Can you share the background behind that?
Vermont is, like I've said a couple times on this call, very, very small. The entrepreneurial network in Vermont is pretty tiny. It's growing, which is great, but it's still really small. The VC space in Vermont is one. There used to be two, now there's one. There's one VC in the whole state. And to their credit, they've done an awesome, awesome job of creating like uniquely Vermont pitch events. And so that one was called Peak Pitch, and it was at a ski area in central Vermont. And you actually rode up, they divided the lift line up into two different lines. One was for founders, and one was for investors, VCs, angel investors, etc. And so you would actually go up the lift with an investor, and it's kind of Vermont's version of an elevator pitch. So, by extension of that, Shark Tank was pretty normal in that you're pitching to a bunch of people wearing suits sitting in comfy chairs and not trying to get your pitch out behind a balaclava with snow guns blaring in your face.
Yeah. Oh my god, that hits way too close to home. We did. I'm assuming you're familiar with a lot of the trails on Stratton, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, so we did because I'm a beginner. We did this past weekend at the time of the recording. We did it a couple times. Mike's Way, like the long trail that goes around the side of the mountain, which is fun. Like it's like really really enjoy that one, especially like just getting back in the habit of skiing. But they were blowing snow, and there was just a total whiteout. Like we'd get to a certain part, and then Dan and I would look at each other, and be like, we can't see more than like 5 feet in front of us. Like, what direction do we go? And then by the time we were at the bottom of the mountain, she would look at me, and just from head to toe, I was completely covered in snow. So it was like, it was not ideal conditions, but it made a fun extra little wrinkle to it.
Yeah, imagine doing a podcast with that sound in the background or an investor pitch with that sound in the background. It's very
Exactly.
difficult.
Not ideal. Gotta use the noise reduction feature, have it work its magic. But what is your overall favorite trail on Stratton Mountain?
It's a tough one. There's actually a trail, and I don't even know what it's called, that we helped cut one summer, which there's the local legend is Bill Koch. Bill Koch was a 1980 Olympic medalist, 80 or 82, I don't remember. Silver medalist up until the last Olympics, or actually two Olympics ago. He was the only medalist for cross country skiing in the U.S. ever. And he lives in Peru, Vermont. And Stratton basically contracted him to like come and cut a trail in the woods for kind of Nordic skiers to go on if they wanted to, or for people to just jump around in the backcountry. And so it was this super fun, turny, single track, kind of like a mountain bike trail that went through the woods. And I think we probably broke, 10 or 20 pairs of skis testing that
Oh
in the
my
early
god.
days.
Oh my god, that's so much. Like, I'm still exhausted hearing about it, but that's really cool. Like, and I never knew about how you break in trails like that. Like, how much time does it take to until a trail is like usable by like civilians?
Well, I mean, a typical trail you're clearing with a whole team with chainsaws and leveling out and everything. This was more of like rustic. He took our whole ski team up there. It was only like 20 of us, and everyone had their little, pruning shears and some chainsaws, and it was only about 4 feet wide. It wasn't like a real trail. It's probably some derivative of Bill Koch's name, but it was a super fun trail. It basically took us a summer of just like helping them out and clearing, and then once the snow flew, it was like, oh, this is fun.
Oh, that's so cool. Well, Cam, thank you so much. This has been just awesome. I mean, everything with your business and this. I'm making a prediction. You're listening now, Dana. I'm sure this is one of my wife Dana's favorite episodes of all time, just because all the Stratton nostalgia. So I appreciate you sharing your side of that story, your side of the mountain as well. But where is the best place if people want to connect with you, personally or online, as well as if they want to, get a seed sheet themselves?
Yeah, definitely. So seedsheets.com is our website. That's where you can pick and choose your own plants, and we'll ship you a garden. You can find me on LinkedIn. My name's Cameron MacKugler on that platform. And another really cool thing that we're doing right now is that we're currently fundraising on WeFunder. So we are taking the momentum from Shark Tank and now letting anybody invest like a shark and join us on our cap table. It's been a really awesome way for our customers to show how much they love our products and our company and actually become owners too. So if any of your listeners have any interest in backing a Shark Tank company, you can do that at wefunder.com/seedsheet.
Perfect, awesome. I love it, and you're a man of the people when it comes to gardening. But thanks so much again for coming on. And last thing, final thoughts. It could be a quote, another random skiing story, whatever you want. Words to live by. Send us home here.
Oh, words to live by. Oh man, that's so hard. One of my favorite quotes, I'll just throw this one out there. David Ortiz, 2000 and was that 6, maybe right after they won the World Series. He said, "When life gives you lemons, you smash them with a bat." So that's kind of words that I've lived by. Whenever things get tough, just grind through it. And there's really no better quote for entrepreneurship than that one.
That is certainly an entertaining way to deal with lemons, which just might change your life. Thank you so much, Cam, for coming on the podcast, sharing the seed sheet story, skiing story. I just blown away. And thank you, wild listeners, for tuning in to another episode. If you want to hear more wild stories like this one, make sure to follow the Wild Business Growth Podcast on your favorite app and tell a friend about the podcast. And maybe go skiing with them and then talk about all your favorite episodes, including this one with them, and then let Cam know. Okay? He'll appreciate that. You can also find us on Good Pods, where there are really, really good podcast recommendations and people. And for any help with podcast production, you can learn more at maxpodcasting.com and sign up for the Podcasting to the Max newsletter. That is at maxpodcasting.com/newsletter. Until next time, let your business run wild.
Bring on the bongos!